Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the Morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. Hachana for Tammuz, getting to the end of this time. Base Yud in the middle over here, and so let's continue on. So we're discussing the fact that in galus, that when you're crushed, so we're talking about yesterday. We're talking about there's sort of two types of being crushed. There's being crushed in terms of galus from the galus itself, like the example of the communist Russia, or an oppressive all the time of Purim, and then there's being crushed when you're in galus. And ultimately, what we're saying here, what we're discussing, and we're going to prove at this point that when you're in galus, being crushed because of communism, which is the example we're going to use, that is not the same as when it is because of us being crushed with the fact we're in galus. Meaning, like we talked about the story yesterday. I remember Futafas when he said his best times were in prison. That is showing us that essentially it wasn't fully him. And what we're going to discuss today, we want to try to understand and appreciate that the choice that we make and we connect ourselves to being crushed because we're in galus, that is the deepest part that we can reach. Let's see. So we were talking about yesterday, we're now finishing about when you're in galus, like in communist Russia. So that's a davar nosav. It's an additional part of you. It's not the essence of who you are. It's expression of the essence, but it's not who you essentially are. And how do we see this? Because, like it says, we'll go from Yud. In this book, it's page 395. As we see in actuality, many people when they're in a place where they had issues with fulfilling Torah and doing mitzvahs. They had many years. Like the story that we talked about, that the Rebbe sent the Chassidim from Russia when they came to America. I think it was in the early 70s. They came to America. They came out of Russia, and the Rebbe paid for the tickets to come to America. And the Rebbe told them, invited them all to come in. I think it was like 10, 11 of them. And he said, if you could please go visit Moshe Feinstein. There's a whole story you can read up about it. I don't remember where I saw it. And they went. There was a car waiting for them outside, 2-3 cars, and they drove to Moshe Feinstein. It's in Lower Manhattan, and they visited him, and he asked them some questions like, "Where are you guys from? What are you learning?" He asked the kids, like, "What are you learning?" I spoke to him in Yiddish, and I'm talking about the Mishnah they're learning and the Gemara they're learning, and I answered questions, and Moshe Feinstein was like blown away. I think he started crying. He was like blown away. Because he saw these kids that have been brought up in communist Russia. Moshe Feinstein was from Russia. He understood what it was about. He lived 50 years. People living 50 years in communist Russia. And they were from Yidden. And this is what he's saying. Now, so these people were in there. They had Mesiras Nefesh for years. Like 50 years, some of these people. But then they come to America. They come to Eretz Yisrael. They come to places where Torah mitzvahs you don't have to use Mesiras Nefesh. The Rebbe says you don't recognize so much. Mesiras Nefesh the Mesiras Nefesh they had like they had back in Russia. In Russia, every mitzvah was with Mesiras Nefesh, and they did it, and they pushed themselves, and they did everything it took. They had to, but suddenly come to America, and we find it within ourselves when we're, let's say, could be. A simple example, when you're at home, let's say, Baal Tshuva, and you come home, and there's not a kosher home, suddenly you're very careful about everything. That's sort of the situation is calling to be this level of crash, and you're very strict with everything. Suddenly comes Kar Nights, where everyone is the same, so you just you fit in, and you just do whatever, and you're not always as strict. That's what he's saying. That's what happened with these Chassidim, and different people in different situations like this. So what's going on? Why is this? Because because the fact that they had Mesiras Nefesh for so many years, It's because the essence of the neshama was revealed, which is lamaila, which is above the keres giluim, above the revealed keres. But it didn't permeate them. It like sort of blew them away. It didn't really internalize within them. So therefore, so he gives like one of the examples he gives. We're going to discuss it soon. Let's see. We'll do the bracket and then we'll explain the example. Because the essence of the neshama is also the essence and also of us in when like who we are, not just when we're in this murder nefesh and just sort of not connecting with ourselves. That's the neshama is also the essence of the neshama as it is within us, like us living day-to-day lives. The etzem gam keres giluim keniz galel sifei, like we said in sifei. The who sha'etzem neshama who ha'etzem shalhem. Essence of the neshama is your essence. Therefore. Not trying to say the revealed parts of us, the tzir and the form of us, meaning ultimately what is happening from this kasis, from the galus that they're in, like the example of communist Russia, it's in a certain sense not them. It's an aspect of them, but it's not really taking all of them. And like the example he's giving, like sometimes, when there's a crazy situation, people do crazy things. Like the example, so this is broad, like some guy's trying to escape, you're trying to escape from someone and you run through like a hole. And then when you come back afterwards and you see, and you can't fit in. Why? What happened over there? What happened that you managed to push yourself through? Or, you lift up a car, the story that a mother's baby's under a car and they lift up a car and they take out the baby. It's like, it's impossible. How did you do it? So they do it. But that didn't change them. When they come back later, they can't do it. Why? Because even though those Indian Mesiras Nefesh and they had this ability and they went wild and they did it, and it's an amazing, but it didn't transform them. They didn't become people that can lift up a car. That's what happens. When you have the Mesiras Nefesh, when the Mesiras Nefesh is coming from something outside of you, like communism, it doesn't essentially change you. You change for the time period that you need, and you push yourself and you manage, and that's great. But not necessarily you have become changed. And that's what the Rebbe is saying. So therefore, that's not essentially become part of you. Whereas, whereas when we are complaining and we're unhappy because we're in galus, not because we're being crushed by something, because we don't like the reality. We have everything we need. We have begashis. We live lives, begashmis, physically. We have so much, infinitely more than they had in the history of the world we're living in a time. But the fact we're still unhappy that we're in galus, when that happens, when we do this, like the Alter Rebbe said, I only want you. When we feel that, and when we connect with that, and we like internalize that message by ourselves, that's coming from the essence of who we are. That's changing us. As they function within us, they become one with us. So we become one. We're not two separate things. We're not magically fitting into this small hole that afterwards we can't do. Because that's not changing us. We become changed. And that's what we're bringing out here. So just to summarize a little bit. So we're saying that you have, before we said you have galus that's causing it. And then we discussed how really the story in Purim is really referencing to the story. It's really that the Yidden received what they'd started by Matan Torah was really after the story, after everything that happened. And once they were already good, whoever said there really is two levels of this. There's been crushed from the outside of us, like communism, and then there's been crushed with the fact, just the mere fact he's still in galus, and we're not happy about this. And so what we're saying, and what we're saying now, is those two levels. We can also say it's so to speak two levels within the essence of the neshama, because both these levels that are revealed in the Mesiras Nefesh are two levels. You could say there's two levels in this, the revelation of Mesiras Nefesh. There's the revelation of Mesiras Nefesh that is like a davar nesav, an additional thing, like we're saying in communist Russia, and therefore when you come out, not necessarily you have that same level of frumkeit that you had in that time period. So it's ultimately that shows us that it's a davar nesav, an additional thing to us. And then there's the fact that we're in galus, and that's which is expressing of who we really are, which happens when we by ourselves are unhappy because of the fact we're in galus. That's what he's going to explain. And then in the end, we'll make sure we'll bring it down a little bit to something that we can take home with us. So we can say when you have the essence of the neshama, and as we are revealed as two separate things, two different things, because the essence of the neshama is being limited. And its limitation is that it's above us. It's not permeating who we are. It's not changing us like the person fitting into the small hole. That's not changing them essentially. But that time period, yeah. And that's why the Yidden can have Mesiras Nefesh 50 years in galus in a communism. But then when they come out, it's much more difficult. And that's why Rabbi Weiss said, I appreciate it over there. They're my best years. But what was he saying? He was saying that over there, that crash from the outside of us, it helped me and it was good. But now, when I'm coming into free America, it's difficult because I haven't, which means that didn't transform me essentially. But the essence of the neshama as it is in its essence, so there's a deeper level of the neshama in the essence of the neshama. There's the essence of the neshama that's above revelation, and there's the essence of the neshama that it's the essence of everything, and that's the deepest level. And once it's in that depth, that deepest level, so it's one with us, and that's what we're reaching. It's a wild idea, and that's what we're reaching when we're crushed because of the fact we're in galus. Yeah, and that's what he's saying. Just to say that again, because this is a very deep idea. So essentially what we're saying is, in the essence of the neshama itself, which is a wild idea, and Yoel Khan, we talked about in the past, this idea was like, blew him away. Unfortunately, we're not as talented and knowledgeable as Yoel Khan at the moment. So we're not blown away as much, but the idea really is wild. Because what we're saying is, in the essence of the neshama, so to speak, when there's only just us and God, we're one, there's levels in that, which is really hard to say, but we're trying to understand this idea. But essentially what we're saying is that in that essence, there's really two levels. There's a level that essence is above us, that doesn't permeate us, and that's not the truest level of the essence. And then there's a level of essence, the truest level, where we're totally one with that essence. And that can only come about, and this is the wildness of it, that it can only come about from you. Nothing can do it to you. So to speak, we can be in seminary for many years and be very chassidish and do all the right things, but that's a davar nesav. That's not you. Then you come out and you live life. The truest test to know where you're holding is when you're not being pushed by anyone, and you have to figure out where you're holding. And it's an important test to do for ourselves, finding out where we're holding. And ultimately, what the Rebbe is saying, that we have the ability to be bothered because of the fact we're in galus. And when we do that, and when we have that, when we think about that, that affects us in the deepest way. More than anything outside us, more than the pressures of galus, of communism, and the outside circumstances, more than decrees of annihilation, which are all things that help us express ourselves and express that essential connection, but it's not the truest expression of our essential connection. And the only truest one is when we sit down with ourselves and express that desire we want from Mashiach, because of the fact that unhappiness that we have because we're in galus. Just to finish off this point, but in the essence of the essence, they're all one. And therefore we can say the bechinas hamard on neshama shemizgal leidim Mesiras Nefesh Therefore, what's revealed through Mesiras Nefesh, he etzem on neshama k'moshi mugderes. This is Mesiras Nefesh of Communist Russia. This is the neshama shehi mugderes beinyan pshitus shelamayla mitzir koches. It's above us, so it doesn't permeate us. It affects us, but doesn't permeate us. It doesn't become who we are. It becomes a davar neis of an additional part of us. I'm able to do these things, and I can do these things for 50 years, but it's not me. It's not essentially me. But what is revealed from the fact that we're bothered by the factor in galus, this is the revelation of the essence of neshama as it is in atznos. It's taking that revelation of the essence of everything and it's permeating us. And this is ultimately, I don't want to go on too long with the whole for but this is ultimately the Vart of Chassidus. Chassidus is, I was reminding myself a few days ago that I remember when I was in yeshiva, a friend of mine, he was engaged, and he was praying Bachrim, and he kept on saying this Vart, because Chassidus mont pneumius. Chassidus demands pneumius. Pneumius means it has to be yours. And this is ultimately what the Rebbe is saying. It has to be yours. The only way you can really change yourself is to make it yours. Because otherwise, it will always be something additional. You could have Mesiras Nefesh. You can give up your life. You can do everything you do. Then the Mesiras Nefesh, we're not, also have to make sure we're not putting down Chas v'Shalom, the Mesiras Nefesh that the Chassidim had in Russia. What they did and what they went through was crazy. And we should never even imagine such a thing. But ultimately, we're talking about the ultimate levels. There was a limitation to that it wasn't truly them. To the truest extent. And the proof, as the Rebbe says, when they came to America, they weren't as strict as they were over there. Because that's the reality of the goals we live in. So therefore, when we decide from ourselves to say, this is enough, I don't like this is not the way it should be. And I want Mashiach. Not because I'm missing something, not because I can't learn. Baruch Hashem, we can learn all day. We have plenty of shiurim to listen to, we have plenty of svarim, plenty of translated svarim. We have plenty of miftaim to do, plenty of good things to do. We have Vigashus, we have air conditioning in these hot days. But we're bothered because Mashiach should be already. He says enough. When that happens, and we work on that, and the more we reveal that, that's the truest expression of that connection you have with Hashem, and that's the truest form of being changed. That you're not I wouldn't not changed. It's the reunification or the revelation of the essence of who you are. And this is what we're trying to do. And so really the lesson is to recognize within ourselves that everything that we do, is this something external to me or is it me? Now, of course, together with this, we all have a nefesh bahamis, maybe it's a hara that's going to get in the way and bother us. We shouldn't pay attention to that too much. But the point is what we're saying, that ultimately a yid is bothered by his crash and galus. Like the Alter Rebbe said, that I only want you, and this is something that we all can do, we all reach, that we want Hashem. And one of the ways to start is to think about Hashem a little bit more. And then figure out where we're holding and how we could change. And it's ultimately all goes down to small steps. I'm going to change, Mashiach now, and that's it. I don't care about anything else. Because the reality is, it doesn't work that way. You have to go slowly. But this is right. So the first way you go is by thinking about this, learning this, internalizing it, praying about it, and asking ourselves, where am I holding in this situation? What do I fit into this category? To be continued tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. Have an amazing day.